Hey everyone, Cinephile Mike is here, and it is day 43 of Oscar Rewind, my bi weekly series of videos where I revisit films that reflect the earlier work of this past year's Oscar nominees and winners. As always, I'll be discussing the awards history for the film, the box office information, the critical response, and as always, and many of you have said you're happy about this, these reviews are spoiler free. You can find other episodes of Oscar Rewind and other spoiler free reviews from awards season nominees, past and present, by visiting cinephilemike.com or exploring on here on the YouTube page. All right, so today we are going to go family friendly after more week with Walt Disney and Buena Vista Pictures' Mighty Joe Young. Based on the 1949 film of the same name, which was written by Marion C. Cooper and Ruth Rose, this update was written by Mark Rosenthal and Lawrence Koner and directed by Ron Underwood. Now, Mighty Joe Young was Disney's Christmas Day release. Yes, Christmas in 1998, Disney was hoping families would flock to Mighty Joe Young, but there was other competition in the season, and unfortunately, this film, which only reported domestic take, which makes its worldwide take, no international numbers posted on Box Office Mojo, against a $90 million budget. This film only made $50,632,037. Little rough. And critically, the film didn't fare too well either. According to Rotten Tomatoes, with 54 critic scores, this film sits with a 54%, and even lower, this film sits with an audience score of 40%, which is culled from over 100,000 ratings. Now, if we were early in Rewind, you'd wonder why I'm talking about this film, but for those of you that have been with me, you know why we're here. Mighty Joe Young lands on Rewind this season for the strength of its animation and a man by the name of Dave Mullins. Now, Mullins has had a long animation career with Pixar. He served as either an assistant animator or animator on almost every single Pixar film, starting with Monsters, Inc. up to Soul. A few in there he wasn't a part of, but for the most part, he was on all of them. When you look at his filmography, Mighty Joe Young was his first animation job on a feature film. And he's on Rewind as a two-time Oscar nominee. His second nomination, which was for this year, was his first win, an award that he shared with producer Brad Booker, because Mullins wrote and directed the Best Animated Short of 2023, which was War Is Over, inspired by the music of John and Yoko. Now, Mighty Joe Young did not have a mighty award season. It had a smaller one. But in that, it did include one sole Oscar nomination for Best Visual Effects, ultimately losing to What Dreams May Come. Additionally, two-time Oscar winner James Horner was nominated for Best Original Score for Mighty Joe Young, for Original Score for an Adventure Film by the International Film Music Critics Awards, and the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films nominated Mighty Joe Young for Best Special Effects, and future Oscar winner Charlize Theron was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. The film's sole reported win was the Genesis Award for Best Feature Film. Now, for those who have been with me when I talked about Year of the Dog, you're familiar with the Genesis Awards. For those that may be new, Genesis Awards are given by the Humane Society of the United States, recognizing films which raise public awareness of animal issues. And not surprising that this one took the prize, given the way that it looks at the issues with poaching and hunting wild animals and the need for alternatives to not do that and preventative measures. So, let's get into the film. Our film opens in approximately the mid 1970s. Ruth Young, played by Linda Pearl, is a primatologist who is studying the gorillas in Africa, and by her side is her young daughter Jill, played in childhood by Mika Borum. And they are including here their new baby gorilla, whom Jill names Joe. Now, a common problem in the region is poachers who come to ensnare these animals and sell them off for parts, including one party led by Andre Strasser, played by, with a usual villainy goodness, by Rade Serbedzija, who one night comes and, in their attempts to capture gorillas, gets into a fight with Joe, and Joe wins. Strasser loses a finger, and he swears revenge, but tragically, at the end of this fight, Jill's mom, Ruth, will be shot and die in the process. Then we quickly jump 12 years later. Jill, now played by Charlize Theron in adulthood, is happily living amongst the civilizations in Africa and keeping up with her mother's work as best she can, including caring for Joe, who has now grown to be over 15 feet taller than all of his peers. But he has Jill by his side, so all is well. He also defends his land, and the legend about him goes anyone who enters his domain will not return. Now, one day, Greg O'Hara, played with the usual charm by Bill Paxton, a wildlife refuge director from the States, shows up not to poach animals but to collect blood samples for research. Through a series of events, he will meet both Joe and Jill, and while immediately becoming smitten with Jill, he also realizes that given the increased poaching attempts in the area, Joe might not be safe. So he convinces Jill that he will be safest at the animal conservatory he works at in Los Angeles. So eventually, Jill agrees, provided she can come to be with Joe. Granted, and they head to LA. Once there, not surprising because Joe is endearing, he claims the hearts of the staff, including the preserve supervisor Harry Rubin, played by David Paymer, and the head zoologist Cecily Banks, played by the always welcome in any film I watch, Regina King. Jill is quickly put in charge of Joe, and the preserve begins to promote Joe's addition as a means to raise funding to support the wildlife refuge's research. Now, this media attention brings Joe and Jill back into the attention of Strasser all these years later, who in the time since has an illegal poaching business in Botswana. And he decides now is the time to enact revenge. And so he will travel to the States for his revenge on Joe. And this will be the challenge that's set up. What will this outcome be as the hunter goes to hunt once more? I'll end the summary there. This film, look, it's cute enough for a Disney film, but the writing is a bit convoluted and crams in a subplot regarding the romance between the film's two human leads that wasn't necessary. Without this element, which leans into a rather predictable and slightly boring plot, could have shaved off an extra 20 to 30 minutes or allowed them, if they were going for a 2 hour runtime, to focus a little bit more on the issues at hand with, the poaching and the challenges with Strasser. While I'm not familiar with the 1949 original, I'm curious to hunt it down now. No pun intended. There have been reports that this film did improve some of the conservation issues, but I don't feel it adds anything new to what we didn't already know in the late 90s. So, what I have to say though is what makes this film watchable despite the weak script and the action um is Paxton and Theron. They have a very easy rapport which works for the situation that they're in, even if when we follow their love story it's taking away from the central message and plot of the film. And, because they lean into this, they don't fully develop the villains either. So, while the action in the film the last 15, 20 minutes is action packed. We cram it to the end when we abandon the love. So the, the ends don't necessarily feel as justified based on what we've had. And as a result of this, all of the other supporting performances feel a bit gratuitous and wasted. The one real main strength besides Theron and Paxton is the animation by the team, which included Mullins, and the visual effects. For a film of this time, these elements hold up very well, and Joe is really sight to behold when you're looking at him. There are a lot of close ups of his facial expressions and just the emotions that we capture from these animators. You almost understand what he's saying with every look and every growl. But while the animation is good and some of the effects are stellar, it's not enough to save an overly long film, which is a shame because I think there was a better film hiding somewhere within the mix. So, for me, the film is 2 stars. So 2 out of 5. That's a 40%. I kind of fall where the audience scores fell. I mean, look, the film has some of this moments, but it plays a little bit more like King Kong light. However, You are the viewer, and if you would like to catch Mighty Joe Young, as of this recording and posting, the film is streaming exclusively on Disney Plus. All right. So we are moving right along with Oscar Rewind this season. If you like what you heard here, please click the button, subscribe to the channel, spread the word, get everyone in on the movie conversation. For those of you that are joining me in real time, there's going to be some real exciting content coming on YouTube in a couple of weeks. I'm going to talk about that on Instagram. You're going to want to definitely check that out. You can follow me, Cinephile Mike, on all social media platforms, including Letterboxd. You can get all the links in the bio above this page or on my website, cinephilemike.com, where you have older reviews and additional print reviews that are exclusive of this summer's new releases. Lots of fun content for you. Please enjoy it all. Happy watching, everyone, and until next time, this is Cinephile Mike saying take a break and watch something new.